Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuhu. Here we go. One more time. Let's get it. Yeah. So today's topic, inshallah, will be registering your domain, getting a web host for your domain, getting a CDN, and I'll explain what the CDN is, and also doing some speed tests on your websites. Now, to some of you this might be very basic, which I understand, but I noticed that a lot of you were asking very basic questions, so there might be a need for this type of video, so I figure I'll throw it out there. I don't want to go explain something that's very high level and then forget the fact that you might not have the basic understanding of something, so I want to make sure that we understand the basics, and then as we go progress to higher end things, everything makes sense. So I hope that's cool, that's clear. So today's topic, and again, if the video goes longer than 15 or 20 minutes, I'm going to pause it or stop it, so I'll cut it into different parts, like part 1, part 2, part 3, something like that. I don't want to create an hour and a half long video. I got some comments saying the content is good, but it's way too long and they just can't grasp it for too long, so I'll try to keep it short, so like bite-sized chunks, so that way it's easier to grasp and the content is digestible, let's just say. So first things first, so why would you need all these things? So and you can use it for anything really, not just affiliate marketing. For affiliate marketing you would need this because you need to host your landing page. So the landing page needs to go on a website or a web host, and obviously you need to make sure the landing page is fast and it loads fast for the end users, especially on the mobile space. In mobile space, your page should load within 2 seconds or less. If it's anything above 2 seconds, let me just write that down, or less in mobile world, I guess that will be fine. Yeah. So if you have a mobile website, or you're running a landing page that's for mobile traffic or anything has to do with mobile, if your target audience is on a phone, I don't know why, but users on the mobile devices, and you guys probably can agree or disagree, they don't wait for things to load. If you're on a desktop, you tend to, because sometimes the desktops are always slow in the beginning. The computer's been always, the bottleneck for activity or whatever you're doing. So people, are used to waiting around. Like for example, we had slow internet first, we had slow computers, slow Windows loading, slow, anything. So you're used to the slow. So on the desktop, if it's something taking more than 2, 3, or 5 seconds, you might wait for it to show up, or whatever. You might just deal with it. But on the mobile phone, if it's taking too long, you would go back and do whatever you were doing. You don't wait for that page to load. You don't wait for that landing page to show up. So it's very important that the page loads fast. So let's go into it. I don't want to waste too much time explaining things. So first thing you need is a domain name. Now there are ways to come up with domain names. I'm not going to go into that. That's up to you to figure out. You need to connect to a domain hosting or domain provider, domain name provider. So the one that I use is NameCheap. Now they're not sponsoring me, or I'm not affiliated with them in any way, whatever, but I use NameCheap. You can use GoDaddy. There's a whole bunch of other ones you can use. HostGator. Some of these hosting facilities will give you a name as well, but I like to keep everything separate. So I have a separate company for my DNS or my names. I have a separate company for my hosting, a separate company for my CDN, so on and so forth. I mean, HostGator is great, but I just don't like their hosting. It's shared, and you can't handle the traffic that I throw at it. It always crashes on me, so I just don't use HostGator or GoDaddy or anything like that. So first thing you gotta do is you gotta sign up. So it's a very straightforward process. I'm just gonna use something. I'm just gonna make this up. I mean, I have my own account, but just to show you guys how to create this account, so I'm just gonna do I don't know, MDM training, if I can spell it. I'm just gonna put my password in there. What? Okay, he likes that one. Alright, first name, I can put your name and stuff in there. Email address, I think I created this email address for testing purposes. Okay, so I don't know what happened there. I hit refresh a couple of times and it went through, so weird. Alright, anyway, so I'm logged on. I just created myself a NameCheap account and I'm in. So now I go to domains registration. So now I want to register a domain. So this is where you get your, creative juices flowing, think of ideas and what kind of name you want. You might take some time and think of some, some names you want to use, but I'm just gonna whatever. So MDM training or MDM Facebook group, whatever. Let's just see what we can find. I'm sure it's available. Yeah, so I'm gonna get this MDM Facebook group. There are these weird names, domain names .xyz, .club, .online, where it's like 88 cents a year. Some of them are 6 to 88. So it's up to you, whichever one you want. If this is for a website that will have SEO, or you want some Google's love to your website, you might want to stick to the the 3 top level domains, which is .com, .net, and .org. If you're going to drive traffic to your website, then honestly it doesn't matter what you have. You could call it whooptedoo.com or whooptedoo.me or whatever. It doesn't really matter because you're driving traffic to it, so the domain name doesn't really matter. But if you want to be showing up in search engines and you want Google to show you some love for free traffic or whatever on keywords, then you might want to stick with the .com or .net or .org. So just keep that in mind. So I'm just going to pay for this real quick. View cart. And they give you a free Whois privacy. Now Whois is basically, let me just show you what that means. So if I was to hide my information from somebody, so let's just say I pick something, what's the domain I can use? I'm going blank here. I'm just going to use something. Let's pick somebody's domain. You know what, I'm just going blank for some reason. Can't think of domain names. Let's just say I'm searching for cleaning services. I don't know, let's see what shows up. So I'm just gonna pick executiveclean.com. So let's just see who owns this domain. So I'll go to Whois, and again, the Whois, there's so many Whois databases, you can just Whois any domain and you'll get some information on them. So here we go, we got some information on these guys. It's a GoDaddy registered. It doesn't give me much data here. Let me try a different Whois. Just search for Whois ICANN. Now, if you don't understand some of these terms, don't worry. This is just internet, terms out there. Okay, good. So this is a domain that does not have Whois protection. So we can clearly see who the owner is, what's the address of that company, what's the phone number of the company, and what is their email address for that domain name. So this domain, basically, if I want to know who they are, I just Whois on their domain, perform a Whois on their domain, and I get the contact information. Now let's pick another domain that has this information hidden. So maybe this one. I don't know. Let's see. So I'm just going to open another page here, just so you can see the difference between the two. So I'm going to pick this one. Go here. Oh, it wants to know if I'm a robot or not. Oh, dude, I'm not a robot. LEN. This one is also showing me the address. Let's pick another one. Let's see somebody who's hiding there. Whois information. There's got to be somebody. Maybe this big one. This big company. It looks like a name brand. Let's try this. Can't find it. I'll show you my company because I have Whois protection. So yeah, there we go. So my company and my name and everything, obviously I'm running out of New York, but when I register my domain infinitely.com, I had the Whois protection enabled. So they give it to you for free. The first year is free, but after that you pay $288 or $3, whatever, every year. So basically what that does, the who is protection, is that when somebody looks up my domain and they want to know who is the owner or where's the company or whatever, they don't see it. My domain belongs to a company called WhoisGuard, and they're based out of Panama, and this is their phone number, and this is not me at all. So what that does is just kind of keeps the spammers away. They don't see they can't find my email address easily, and they're not going to be calling me all day long selling me crap that I don't want. So this kind of gives you that protection compared to this, which you're pretty much wide open. I know the person's name, the owner's name, the address, phone number, email. I mean, this is information that, again, it's up to you. You might have a business that you want people to know who you are, where you are, so they can find you. But at the same time, you have the option to hide it as well. Now, this is what NameCheap gives you. I think GoDaddy is a different company that you show up under, but this is what Whois means. So I hope this makes sense. So they call it WhoisGuard. It comes free, for the first year. After that, you pay, and blah blah blah. Okay, so that's that. So I'm just going to register this domain, confirm order, and I'm going to pay with my PayPal. So I'm going to pause the video for a second. Okay, so I just paid for it using my PayPal, and let's see. Okay, it's done, and now let's go to manage it. Okay, so once you get your domain and you pay for it, it will show up in your domains list under your dashboard, or your domain list that you have here. It will show up in the domains list here. So here's your domain, and when you go to manage, it will have some basic records in here, like your A records or C names. Again, we'll go into what's what as we go, but by default it will be using NameCheap basic DNS. And if you go to the advanced DNS, that's where you're going to see some records in there. So let's see here. So by default it goes to some random page, parking or whatever. So if I go to my domain, it might come up with something, it might not. Let's take a look. Yeah, it just showed up as NameCheap, default park domain or whatever you want to call it. So that's all there is to register a domain. So from registering a DNS, that's all you need to do is you go to registration, you pick a name for your domain, you pick whatever you want, whatever your heart desires, you register it. Once it's registered, you go back to your dashboard, domains list, and you will see it in here. And then you can click on manage, and you can manage it. And I'll show you what to do with this after that. So now what we need to do, we got the domain, so now we need to get a server to put our website or a landing page or WordPress blog, whatever, on it. So let's take a look at that. So what I recommend and what I use for my web servers is linode. Like there's also these other SSD types Linux servers out there, but I prefer linode just because I like it. I use it. It's simple for me to get used to, whatever. So I use linode. There's also DigitalOcean. You can get VPS from a lot of other vendors out there. There's obviously Rackspace. I just like linode, and the pricing is pretty fair. I think you get a two, and this is virtual private server, VPS. This is your dedicated machine. You get 2 gigabytes of RAM, 1 CPU, 24 gigabytes of SSD, and about 2 terabytes of data transfer, which is pretty, it's pretty good, and it's about $10 a month. So for $10 a month, or $8.99 or $7.99, you get your typical HostGator or whatever, which is a shared account, which means 50 people have the same machine. Here, this is dedicated to you, so you set it up the way you want. The only negative thing about this linode is it's all self-managed. There's no cPanel, no GUI interfaces, no click and point and click stuff. So you have to do your own thing, which I'm going to show you how to do. But in the end, I think it's worth it because you control everything. You have full control over your machine. The IP address is yours alone. The OS you install, you update it yourself. You do everything yourself. And I'm just going to show you how to do that. So let me log into this. Okay, so I just logged on to my account. As you can see, I got a couple of servers already running. And one of them is running in Dallas, Texas. The other one's running is in New Jersey. Now the reason why why I would be running it in different locations is depends on where my users are. So just to give you an idea, let's look at the map of the world. So one of their locations, if I want to create a new linode, I can choose a location. So I can choose New Jersey, what is that, California, Georgia, Texas, UK. So I can go somewhere in Europe. I can go in Germany, and I can go in Singapore. So for example, if your users are in India, okay, and your web server or landing page is somewhere in, let's say, New Jersey, which is here here somewhere. So just look at the distance that the traffic has to travel. Now I know you think everything is instant, but there is something called, a transmit and receive that happens, and the latency alone is so high that the user might take the user just a second or two just to get the data back and forth, or the signal back and forth, and downloading images and pictures and going back and forth like that is going to add a lot of latency in your traffic. So it makes sense to have, if you're targeting users in this region, like in Asia, it makes sense to put your web server in, like, say, in Singapore, which is right here. This is Singapore. So if you put your server in Singapore and your users are coming from, say, Malaysia, Vietnam, Thailand, India, Philippines, Indonesia, they're so close to the server that the round trip, will be very fast. So you first have to look at the latency, how far, how many hops does it take to get to where my server is. So the less amount of hops, the better. If you can host in India, that's even better. But I'm just saying, since linode has Germany, UK, USA, and Singapore, so the only option closest to users in Asia, I would choose the Singapore server, because that's where all my users will be. Let's say if I'm advertising in Asia, or even the Middle East, it's pretty short compared to going to the US. Now, if I was advertising somewhere in UK or Europe, like UK, I can host right in UK. The rest of Europe, I can host in Germany because it's closer to it. So you get the idea. The shortest the distance between your user and your server, the better. That's what you want. So just for testing or whatever, I'm just going to use Singapore for now, and we'll figure that out later. So one thing you want to pick is what plan you want, how much money you want to spend. It's 10 bucks a month, 20, 40, 60, it goes all the way up to like 960 bucks a month. But they give you a lot of disk, CPU, and memory. So this is the memory: 2 gigs, 4 gigs, 8 gigs, 12 gigs, 24 gigs, about 50 gigs, 64 gigs, 81 gigs, and this is 122 gigabytes, which is a lot of memory. So you can start with a 2 gigabyte. 2 gigabytes still is a lot of memory for the web server, so that's fine. Choose your destination. Again, I'm just going to choose, for this example, Singapore. I'm going to say add this linode. It takes just a few seconds. So this is my node that I just set up in Singapore. It's saying it's being created, so I'm just going to click on it. And here you can monitor the process, the job queue. What is it doing right now? So it's just doing the initial config. So let's just give it some time to finish. One thing you can do is, while it's working, you go to settings and you can actually give it a name. So this, I can call it MDM test server, or whatever you want to call it. This could be your blog, or your web server, or your landing page server, or whatever you want to call it, just so you know what is what. If you have a whole bunch of these servers in the list, you get confused which server is what. So it's good to label them, so it kind of makes sense to what it is. So just hit save changes. So now it's called MDM test server here. See that? So it's brand new. It hasn't been set up yet. So now I'm going to basically create the machine. So I'm just going to say deploy an image, and I'm going to choose an operating system. So this, again, it might confuse some of you, but let me just keep it simple. I choose CentOS 7 all the time. You can mess around with all these other ones if you want to. These are all Linux distribution, Linux OS. This is not Windows. It's all command shell based OS. So and don't be afraid of it. Don't be scared of it. It's technology. To me, is the simplest thing to explain because it's very easy. To me, meaning that it's ones and zeros. There's no way around it. It's either works or doesn't work. In terms of, it's very simple compared to some of the other topics which might depend on your own discretion. Technology is very concrete. It just either will work or won't work. Once you know what to do, it's very simple to use. So I choose CentOS. I'll leave everything the way it is. Here I'll choose a default root password. Now in Linux, the default administrator account is called root. It's not called administrator or admin or super user. It's called root. So it's asking you, what do you want the root user password to be? So I'm just going to give it a password, and I'm just going to say deploy. So now it's going to go in and start creating the image for me. So I'll give it a little time. While this is happening, I will need something to connect to my virtual machine. Now what you need here, let me go back here. What you need here is a software called Putty. So if you just search Putty, P-U-T-T-Y, Putty. If you search for it, you go to putty.org and download Putty. And you want the Windows executable, so putty.exe. I click on that, and I'm just going to download it right into my desktop. So let's just grab this file, cut right on the desktop, paste. Okay, so while this image is being built, let's just do a refresh. Looks like it's done with the queue. I'm just going to boot. So this is basically powering it on. It's like you're flipping the switch to power on your server. So now it's going to do the boot process. Starting it up. It's kind of like you would hear like it's kind of if you were in a server room where you turn on the power button on the computer. That's what I just did here. Okay, it's going, and it's running. So now this is the current state of my machine. Now what I need to do is connect to my machine. So if I go to remote access, and there will be the IP address. So this is the IP address of my server. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm just going to go to my Putty session here. Where did I put Putty? Okay, where did that go? Give me 1 second, guys. Desktop. It's right here. Strange. Just gonna create a shortcut to the desktop then, I guess. Yeah, that's fine. Weird. Okay, so I'm just gonna double click on it, and this is what Putty looks like. So it's a very simple interface. I'm just gonna paste the IP address that I got from here. This is the IP address from the remote access, and I'm just gonna say open. And the very first time when you connect, you're going to get this fingerprint alert. Basically, this is saying the connection between your computer and your server is encrypted, and this is the fingerprint, the public fingerprint that the server is sending to you. Do you accept it or not? Now, before going into all this RSA and tokens and SSH and what all this is, it just means that the data from this point on between your computer and the server will be encrypted. So you say yes, and I'm just going to make this a little bigger here so you can see. So this is the typical oh, now look, the Putty icon showed up. Great. I'm just going to delete the icon. Okay, this is the typical shell screen that you would get on a Linux machine. So I'm basically remote controlling my Linux server. So root is a username, and the password is the one you chose during the setup. And when you get to this prompt, this little pound sign that looks like that, that means you're at the root shell command. Okay, so I'm basically in my system. So now what I need to do is I need to install something kind of like cPanel, but it's all DOS based or shell based. So let me just move this tab here, and the one I like to use is VPS Sim. It's vpssim.com. It's written by a Vietnamese guy, and the guy maintains it pretty well, and it's great. So let's go to the how to set up VPS Sim, and literally there's like one line of code here that you have to copy paste, and this is it. You copy this whole line, you go into your Putty session, you paste it in. I believe that's the second line, but let's go. So what this will do is it will go to VPS Sim, download the executable for VPS Sim, and install it, and install all the prerequisites, requirements, whatever the server needs, like your Apache, your Nginx server, MySQL, caching mechanisms, WordPress, the whole 9 yards. It will put everything in here, including firewall, mail server, FTP server, whatever you need. Now this process could take maybe 10 to 15 minutes, so I'm just going to pause it and we'll come back when it's done. Okay, so it looks like the guy added a little bit of menu in here. So which language do I want? Obviously English. Okay, so this is asking me what do I want for my PHP my admin port. Now this is a port that you would use to manage or connect or look at your PHP my admin page. If you don't know what it is, don't worry about it. We'll talk about it some other session, but for now I'm just going to give it random port. I usually use whatever the year I'm in or whatever, so I'm just going to say 2016. Your email address, so mdm@inflink.com. This is the email address of you as an administrator. Okay, what SQL database or MySQL do you want? So it's recommending 10.0. I'm just going to use that. Let's go next. Keep in mind some of these web services like WordPress or whatever might not like 10.0 Maria, so just you might be able to use the 5.0, but it's up to you. So do I agree? Yes, go. Enter to continue, and now it's going to go crazy, start downloading everything. So again, I'm going to pause and I'll be right back. Okay, so at some point during the install of VPS Sim, it's going to ask you to set up a root password for MySQL. So you're just going to hit enter twice and then just enter the password. This is something you want to keep track of. Write it down, memorize it, whatever. You don't want to lose that, because you must only use only numbers. It doesn't like the password I use, so let me use a different password. Okay, I took that one, and I'll pause the video again. Alright, so as soon as the install is done, the server will reboot and you'll get this message saying network connection or connection closed unexpectedly. That's fine because your server just restarted, so that's okay. And typically the virtual machines or VPS, especially Linux, they boot up pretty fast. So if I even try to reconnect like a few seconds later, let's do restart session. It might work, it might not. Let's see if it's up again. Maybe it needs another minute. Yeah, I think it needs another minute or two. Oh, there we go. Root, and I'm going to log in. That's it. And one thing it will tell you that to get into the VPS Sim menu, you type in VPS Sim. So that's what you're going to type in. That's all you need to learn is how to type in VPS Sim. So when I do that, it's going to take me to this little menu. Wait, it's telling me something here. Current IP address is this. Okay, so it's asking me, should we add my IP address? This is my IP from my home. Should they add this to the firewall's whitelist? So I'm just going to say, yeah, sure, why not? It's going to restart the firewall, and that's it. So this is the menu that you will get every time you launch VPS Sim. So this is your quote-unquote cPanel or whatever you want to call it. This is where you do all the magic. So one thing I always do and make sure my server is up to date is I check the update system, which is number 24. Type in 24. I do update system, which is the number 1. And it will say, you sure you want to update your server? This will update all your CentOS system and all the different components that's installed. So it will check for any updates that are required, and if there are any updates available, it will download them and install them. If there are none available, it will just say everything is done and you won't get any updates. Same way you can update the VPS Sim software itself, so that's the number 2. It might look and say you're already using the latest and greatest. That's great. You can also upgrade your your MySQL DB. You can change your PHP version. PHP is the language or the software that's used to power your web services on this VPS Sim. Nginx is a web server that's used in here, so you can also change the version of your Nginx, and if everything is good, you just exit. So I'm going to stop this video here. It's already 30 minutes. I said I'm going to make it 15-20 minutes. I'm going to pause this here. So at least just to recap, go back here. So we just set up a domain, a DNS, and we just set up a VPS server. We didn't get to install the web services on that server yet. So we'll do that in the next video, inshallah. So hopefully this was useful. If it doesn't make sense, just rewind it, download it from Facebook, whatever you can. Play it slowly, fast, whatever. The concept is very simple, very easy. It's not rocket science. Anybody can do this. If I can figure it out, you guys can figure it out. It's not that bad. linode is the VPS server that I use. Check it out. See what they have, which service you need from them. VPS Sim is the control panel that I use to install my web services. Putty is the program, P-U-T-T-Y. Putty, download it on your Windows machine. Double click on it and connect to your VPS IP address using the root password and root login, and let the VPS Sim do its thing. The VPS install is a single line command. You just copy paste that into your Putty, run, and let it do its thing. It takes about 15-20 minutes. Once it's done, it will reboot and you are back to this command prompt. Okay, so this is where we are so far. Inshallah, video 2, I'll continue from here.